Namaskaram. Welcome to this video where we'll be talking about Gautam Buddha's Buddhism as a philosophy from this ancient Indian soil. Siddhartha Gautama, most commonly referred to as the Buddha, which means the awakened, was a wandering ascetic and religious teacher who lived in India during the 6th or maybe the 5th century BCE and founded Buddhism. In this video, we shall talk about the Indian knowledge framework and classification of the Indian knowledge systems, Buddhism. Siddhartha Gautama, most commonly referred to as the Buddha, is the founder of Buddhism. According to Buddhist legends, he was born in the Lumbini, what is now in Nepal, to royal parents of Sankhya clan, but renounced his home life to live as a wandering ascetic. His father's name was Suddhodana and his mother's name was Maya Devi. After leading a life of mendicancy, asceticism and meditation, he attained nirvana at Buddha Gaya, what is now in India, Bihar. The Buddha then wandered through the lower Indo-Gangetic plain teaching and building a monastic order which is called as Buddhism. The Buddhist traditions hold that he passed away in Kushinagar and reached his Mahaparinirvana. Buddha was born as a prince and he was trained as a prince in all aspects of a Kshatriya. Then got married to Yashodhara, a very beautiful princess. Immediately had a wonderful son called Rahul. But in this course, it seems that when he was born, the astrologers had predicted that either he would become a wonderful king or he would become a wonderful ascetic, epic. Now, Suddhodana never wanted him to become an ascetic or a sage, and so he never allowed Siddhartha Gautama to go outside and see any suffering. It is to the beautiful world of enjoyment, pleasurely life, leisured life that he was acquainted to till almost he was 29 years. Now, after this, one day he goes out of the palace along with his assistant, a charioteer, and suddenly sees an old man and comes to know from the charioteer that old age is inevitable to everyone. He sees a diseased man and comes to know that diseases can affect the individuals also, making them suffer and making them look ugly. Then he came across 4 people carrying a dead body on their shoulders, and then comes to know from his charioteer that death also is inevitable to every human being. Now this has changed his mind. He doesn't even go back to the palace. He doesn't even bid farewell to his wife Yashodhara or son Rahul, doesn't tell the king Suddhodana, but goes into the forest and becomes an ascetic, trying to find out the answers as to what is suffering and why is this life as we live if death is going to be the goal of it. For a number of days and months, he sits under a Bodhi tree and then understands what exactly is life and death, which is what is called as nirvana by him after a number of days of meditation. On a Purnima, which we now called as Buddha Purnima, Siddhartha Gautama became enlightened with this knowledge and became Buddha. For almost 30-35 years after he attained enlightenment, he roamed about the entire country of Jambudvipa, which extended from Syria in the west to almost Indonesia in the east, and has preached whatever he learned during the process of enlightenment. Later, all his preachings are being recorded in the books, and that becomes the source books of Buddhism. The foundational teachings of Buddhism can be encapsulated into 4 noble truths. The very first truth that he talks about is dukkha, that is suffering. Life is marked by suffering, dissatisfaction and impermanence according to Buddha. The second is samudaya, which is called as the origin of suffering. Suffering arises from craving, desire, and attachment to various things through the sense organs. Nirodha is the fourth noble truth of Buddha, which will mean cessation of suffering. Suffering can be overcome by eliminating craving and attachment. Once you remove this desire, the suffering automatically can be put to an end. And the fourth noble truth is Magga. Magga or Marga is the path to the cessation of suffering. The path to overcome suffering is the eightfold path given and discussed in the next slide. So these are the four noble truths. That there is suffering in this world, number one. There can be the root cause of suffering, number two. Number three, we can put an end to the suffering. And number four, we can achieve nirvana or put a total end to the suffering, enjoy peace of mind by following the eightfold path. Let us now see what the eightfold path talks about. The first is the right understanding. That is, comprehending the four noble truths is the right understanding of life. Number two, right intention. Cultivating intentions of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness is right to intention. Number three is right speech. Engaging oneself in truthful, harmonious, and beneficial speech is the third noble eightfold path called the right speech. Right action is the fourth one. Acting ethically by refraining from harmful actions is the right action, which becomes the fourth noble path according to Buddha. Right livelihood is the fifth noble path. Choosing a profession that does not cause any harm to others is the fifth noble path, which is called right livelihood. Right effort is the seventh noble path. Cultivating positive mental states and overcoming the negative ones is the right effort according to Buddha. The eighth one is right mindfulness. Practicing awareness and attentiveness to the present moment and living in the present moment, right now, right here, is what is the eightfold path, which is right mindfulness. So, right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and right mindfulness, along with the four noble paths, definitely will put a man on the path of peace and put an end to his suffering in this world according to Buddha. The Buddhist concepts are based upon the noble things like refraining from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and intoxication. These are the 5 things that you should refrain from, that you should say no in your life. Monastic communities follow more extensive ethical guidelines and rules focusing on meditation, study, and service. Meditation and practice, especially the mindful meditation, is the central thought to the Buddhist practices. Various forms of meditation, including mindfulness, which is called as vipassana, concentration, which is called as samatha, and aimed at development insight, concentration, and mental clarity, will give peaceful path and meaning to your life according to Buddhism. The rituals and devotions are being suggested by Lord Buddha for having a mindful meditation. Accordingly, few rituals, few prayers and devotional activities in order to put you on the path of mindful meditation constitute the Buddhist concepts, thereby leading a person to become a bodhisattva, the realized person. There are a number of traditions of Buddhism existing in the world today. The number one is called as the Theravada Buddhism. Emphasizes adherence to the original teachings of Lord Buddha and the practice of monastic discipline. It is prevalent in the countries today in Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Myanmar. The second tradition of Buddhism is Mahayana Buddhism. This includes a wide range of schools and practices such as Zen, Pure Land, and Tibetan Buddhism. It focuses on the ideal of Bodhisattva who seeks enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. The third tradition of Buddhism is the Vajrayana Buddhism, also known as the Tibetan Buddhism. It incorporates esoteric practices, rituals, and advanced meditation techniques that are aimed at rapid enlightenment. It is prevalent in Tibet, Nepal, and Bhutan today. The Buddhist literature texts are actually, Buddha did not write anything. He taught many principles to many people traveling across the country. But after Buddha's nirvana, these preachings have been concentrated as the Buddhist texts. The Gandharan Buddhist text that is produced in the 3rd century AD, the Indo-Aryan languages such as Pali texts, which are typically called as the Tripitakas, the Buddhist Chinese texts, and the classical Tibetan texts. The Buddha Vachana is the Pali canon, also known as Tripitaka, the 3 baskets, which become the basic Buddhist literature today. The Dharmapadas or the Dhammapada, as it is called in Pali. Dharmapada is Sanskrit word, Dhammapada is Pali word. These texts are the collections of sayings or aphorisms, the most well-known of which is the Pali Dhammapada. But there are various versions in different languages such as the Patna Dharmapada, Gandhari Dharmapada, and so on and so forth. The Pali Udana and Sarvastivada Udana Varga, these are other collections of inspired sayings of Buddha. The Pali Itivuttaka, as it is said. Itivuttaka is as it is said by Lord Buddha, also is an important Buddhist text. The Pali Sutta Nipita. Sutta Nipita includes texts such as Ashtavagga and Parayanavagga and so on and so forth, which are the sayings of Lord Buddha. Tera Gadha and Teri Gadha. These are the 2 collections of poems related to the elder disciples of Buddha. A Sanskrit Thavira Gadha also is existing in the Indian canonical texts of Buddha. Theravada texts tradition. The Theravada tradition has an extensive commercial literature like Buddha Ghosha of the 5th century ACA and by Dhammapala. The Mahayana texts are in the form of sutras by various bodhisattvas like Amitabha, Akshobhya, and Virochana, later by Maitreyi, Manjushri, and Kshitigarbha, and many other people. Moola Madhyamika Karika or root verses in the middle way are also very famous, which are written by Nagarjuna in 150 AD. So, in conclusion, Buddhism is a multifaceted tradition that addresses fundamental questions about human suffering, the nature of self, and the path of enlightenment. Its teachings emphasize empirical investigation, ethical behavior, and meditation as means to achieve liberation from the cycle of suffering and rebirth. The diverse traditions within Buddhism reflect a range of interpretations and practices, each contributing to the rich tapestry of Buddhist thought and practice. Buddhism is widespread all across the Asian countries, starting with India. Thank you very much for being a part of this beautiful discussion on Buddhism. See you in the next video. Bye for now. Namaskaram.